I'll let Councillor Steele sit down first. Evening, everyone, and members of the public. Can I welcome you to the November meeting of the Planning Committee? Can I remind everyone that the meeting is being recorded and televised? And can I then introduce the top table? I'm the chairman of the Planning Committee, Councillor Bob Cope, and to my right is
Councillor Robert Duncan, Vice Chair of the Planning Committee.
Annette Roberts, Corporate Director, Place and Communities.
Hardeep Sharma, Solicitor to the Council. Helen Bembo, Development Management Team Manager.
Kelly Harris, Lead Planning Manager.
Tom Nutt, Assistant Team Manager.
Jessica Allsop, Senior Planning Officer.
Thank you. Can I remind the members of the public to have respect for the proceedings and please behave in an orderly fashion, allowing everyone to have their say for and against. I would appreciate it. Thank you. So we go into the minutes. The first is the minutes of the meeting. Do I have approval, members, that the last minutes were correct? Thank you. Item 2, apologies. I've got one apology, Councillor Jeff Ashley. Are there any more from the floor? Councillor Greg Spruce. Anybody else? Is there any from the top table? No? Okay, 2 apologies. The next is declarations of interest. Does anyone in the room have anything to declare, please? No?
Chair, if I could just quickly add, there is a council application and you'll have a dispensation which actually enables you to deal with the application appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you, Pardip. So we proceed. Councillor Kelly.
That is agenda item 3, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. We proceed therefore to the determination of the planning applications, and the first one on our agenda tonight is the Star Inn, Market Street, Penkridge, which is application 25//00180/FUL, and this is a minor application. Thank you. We don't have any speakers speaking against or for, but we do have a speaker from the agent applicant, which is Mr. Nigel Smith, on behalf of Marsden's. Could she present the report first? That's my fault. I'm jumping the gun a little bit. Apologies. Helen, can you present the report? My apologies. Thank you.
No problem, Chair. Thank you. This application relates to the Star Inn public house located off Market Street in the centre of Penkridge Village and the associated conservation area. This application follows enforcement proceedings and is therefore in part retrospective. The original proposal was for the retention of an existing wall mural and the decking area with outside seating. So just for the benefit of members, this is the location plan here. That shows the location of the pub in relation to the car park and Market Street. The decking area is here to the front and so is the mural. And I will just show you that changed, yeah, an image of the public house as it is at present. Officers consider that the proposed wall mural and picket fencing, as shown here on this picture, was harmful to the character and appearance of the conservation area. No public benefits were advanced to outweigh this harm, and the applicant was advised that during the application process, it would be recommended for refusal on these grounds. To overcome the concerns, the scheme has therefore been amended, and now the proposal seeks permission for the retention of the existing decking area with outdoor seating, the replacement of the picket fence with a brick wall, and the painting over of the wall mural in a single solid colour. It is considered that the retention of the decking area, along with the proposed brick wall and single colour wall painting, will cause no material harm to the amenity of neighbouring residential properties and will be sympathetic to the existing building, which is locally listed, and the street scene and within the conservation area setting, with no resulting harm on the character, significance or setting of these heritage assets involved. There is no objection to the scheme now as proposed from Environmental Health Team or the Senior Conservation Officer. The proposal as amended accords with the relevant policies in the adopted core strategy and the NPPF. So just to give you a closer image of the existing building with the mural in place and the decking area, the picket fence would be removed and replaced with an appropriately designed brick wall, but the decking would remain. The mural will also be painted over. And that's a final view from the side showing the residential buildings in the distance there. So the application as currently proposed is recommended for approval, subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ellen. So we go to the speaker, the applicant's agent. Would Mr. Nigel Smith please go to the lectern, please? You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, members of the committee and officers, as well as the general public. My name is Nigel Smith. I'm a resident of Penkridge and have been for the last 37 years. And I'm here excuse me, this evening to speak for the Star Public House and the applications for the retention of the decking area as well as the mural. The Star fully appreciates the importance of following the planning process, and once they were aware the permission was required, have worked transparently with the council to rectify the matter. The Star completes great work in and for the local community, supporting local clubs, as well as local and national charities, including the Air Ambulance. I decided not to concentrate too much on the Star because everybody is aware of the work that they do, and that can be seen from the support they have from the local community. The new decking area, however, replaced an area previously held overgrown bushes, litter, needles, empty beer cans, a space that was unsightly, it was unhygienic and it was unsafe. And by clearing that area and installing the current decking, the Star transformed it into a clean, safe, managed outdoor area that is far more appropriate to a family-friendly public house. It allows customers to be seated comfortably, responsibly, and it helps the Star management control where people gather, which in turn supports better noise management overall. The structure is modest as it stands, it's well maintained, it does not negatively impact any neighbouring properties, and I've decided not to concentrate too much on the decking area at the moment because, as we've seen this evening, tentative agreement exists. I would, however, like to just justify a little tiny bit the elephant in the room, which is the mural. The Air Ambulance mural is the third mural that the Star has had on the side of the building. Previous versions have always been well received. The Star has always used local artists and artwork to bring colour, character and identity to the building. The current mural continues that tradition, has become a positive focal point for the majority of the community, brightening up what was previously a plain and tired wall. Local customers and residents comment on how much they enjoy it, and it contributes to the pub's role as a welcoming and vibrant community hub. It causes no harm to the local area, creates no disturbance, and it has no structural impact. The mural simply enhances the look of a long-standing local business. In closing, my 3 minutes. Both the mural and the decking were created with the sole intention of improving the Star's premises, supporting the community, the customers, and enhancing the surrounding environment. The Star believes the additions make the pub a more attractive, safer place and a more positive asset to the whole of Penkridge. Therefore, the Star respectively asks the committee to approve these retrospective applications so that the business can move forward with compliance and serve all of the residents of Penkridge. Thank you very much indeed for my 3 minutes-ish.
Thank you, Mr Smith. I did allow you to go 20 seconds over, but fair enough.
Thank you.
Right, members, I'm presuming that the local members are Councillor Adams and Kelly. Who are the local members for this? It's yourself. So firstly, then I'm going to Councillor Harper Wallis. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I guess I'm not really going to speak too much to the application. I think we've all read the report from the officer. It's very clear that we should be minded to approve tonight. And kind of why this is at the committee, in the fact that, you know, minors don't typically come to committee. I know in the past we've been told that you know, public opinion and so forth is not a material planning concern. So if that reason's been used tonight to bring this to committee, then I'd be interested in the crossover and the explainer. But yeah, I agree with everything that kind of the speaker said. I've read the documentation and I agree that we should be minded to approve tonight. Be interesting to hear what members have to say.
Kelly.
Thank you, Chair, through you. The application is on Planning Committee this evening because the Constitution does allow that there are certain applications that can be referred by myself in consultation with the Corporate Director of Place and Community, simply because we are very aware of the level of public opinion, and sometimes that level of transparency and scrutiny is always best to suggest. I am aware personally of a lot of people on both sides of the, pardon the pun, the fence on this application. So to take away any sort of lack of scrutiny, the decision was taken in accordance with the Constitution to put it into planning committees to consider.
Okay, do you want to come back? No? Any other speakers, members? Councillor? Yeah, Councillor Adams.
It's not quite a member for that ward. I see no problems with this application.
Councillor Barrow.
Chair, can I just ask one question? What height would the wall be that's being replaced?
Ellen.
Yeah, through you, Chair. We envisage it being shorter or a similar height to the picket fence, so it's a low level with an appropriate coping on the top to finish it, more akin to the brickwork that's within the vicinity, but it's certainly not a high level wall by any stretch. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry, but I've got quite a few questions to ask. So please bear with me on this. I've gone through all the documentation and I've got the officer's report. My first question is regarding section 215 of the Town and Country Planning Act, where it states an actual harm to a designated conservation area. Firstly, this building isn't a grade 2 listed building. There's only 4 buildings within a short distance of that pub that is conservation, and those are, even the building Whitehall Cottage next to it isn't classed as a grade 2 listed building. And I've got the heritage what's name on my laptop and researched everything. On the other points, the lot of the reports state on a lot of inaccuracies. Firstly, who owns part of the land? It was stated that highways own the land, and now it's not clear if they do, whereas I've done a land registry search and they do not own it. So they're saying it's going to have traffic implications, it's going to cause problems. That site has never had any problems. All this was done basically during COVID to help when all the planning regulations were relaxed under Robert Jennick, the MP, and says open spaces were allowed to be converted to help pubs and that, cafes, street markets to all get back on the feet, and this is come out from nowhere. Now, I'm on several councils and I've never seen an enforcement notice come across. The only one enforcement notice I have seen, Chair, is on the noise element coming from the pub. Nothing to do with an enforcement element of the decking or the memorial. Thank you.
Helen, do you want to comment?
Thank you, through you, Chair. I know, Councillor Kelly, we've had a back and forth on this by email as well, so I'm happy to clarify that for the benefit of the gallery and members of committee. So section 215, which you refer to, is an untidy site notice. So in terms of unauthorised works that we've got here, 215 isn't what we would serve. That's not the appropriate notice. But as a lot of members know, we don't serve enforcement notices or untidy site notices or breach of condition notices until negotiations have failed. The Star Public House have negotiated with us perfectly well, worked very proactively with the case officer to move this forward. So we've seen no reason or had any cause to serve any enforcement notice. You're right, it's not a grade 2 listed building, and I don't think in the report it refers to that. It's a locally listed building, so it's a different category. So it's what we call a non-designated heritage asset. So it's a locally listed building within the setting of a conservation area. So there is no grade status to it. So hopefully that's cleared that up. In terms of the ownership of the land and the highway land, there's a nuance here. It can be land that is under the jurisdiction of highways. It doesn't necessarily mean it's owned by highways. There's a difference. So it can have highway jurisdiction, but they don't necessarily own it. So you're right, the land registry search wouldn't find that. It's just the Highways Authority have jurisdiction. For the purposes of this application, it's not a pertinent matter because the decking area is fine to be located where it is, as shown on the photograph, and we're recommending that it stays in that location. But there's going to be some alternative works outside of the planning remit which relate to the bin and the bench, and that's being dealt with by County Highways as a separate matter. So yeah, Councillor Kelly, you're right in terms of the land ownership, but all the correct notices have been served on this, and we're comfortable to issue it based on the current proposed decking area. So I hope that helps. Thank you, Chair.
You want to come back?
Thank you, Chair. The other section 215 I was referring to as well is the MPPF, where it clearly states where development proposal will lead to less harm than substantial harm to the significance of a designated heritage asset, the harm should be weighed against the public benefit. If of the proposal, including where appropriate, securing the optimum viable use. Well, that outside seating and the memorial will optimise, make people aware of health-wise, the NHS, things like that, and bring more business into the economy where we're struggling at the moment with people going out and things like that. And to put a restriction on a property that, to me, and you know, section 215, 217 and 214, which is MPPF, clearly states we should give a lot of consideration to these sorts of elements.
Helen?
Yeah, again through you, Chair. So you'll see in the officer report the heritage elements have been put in the planning balance exactly as you've just described. So the discussion is around the fact that we're not saying that the decking area can't stay. The decking area can stay because we understand that that adds to the vitality and the vibrancy of the public house, and there's been no discussion that there would be an impact negatively on the public house. There's a lot of people here today representing it, so it's obviously a popular public house and there's no viability issue. What we're saying is the actual mural itself as it currently stands, when weighed in the planning balance against the fact it's a locally listed building in a conservation area, isn't an appropriate form of development. So just to be clear, the decking can stay. And that won't affect the business in any way. We wouldn't want to do anything that would undermine the business. I would argue that the mural is aside from the fact that it's a fully functioning and operational public house. So it's merely on the fact that it's detrimental to the heritage assets, the conservation area and the locally listed building. Thank you, Chair.
We finished? You want to come back? Okay.
Just on the point of the mural, section 215, it was clearly stated, as you know, Helen, we had a lot of emails that Tower Hamlet Council took this to court and stated that a resident had painted its building red and white stripes, it's all aesthetics, and they could not put that sort of pressure on the resident to change it from to a neutral colour, and that is in law today.
Yeah, just as a final point, really, Chair, because we're just kind of going back and forth, but you're right, that was about the painting of the aesthetic of a building. So it was a change in colour and a change in appearance. This being a mural is a different aspect, and we have to look at each case on its merits. So I don't know what the planning policy situation is locally in Tower Hamlets. What you're referring to is paragraph 215 of the NPPF, so the National Policy Framework, which is obviously apparent and relevant to all the sites. But I would argue that the painting of a facade of a building is different to a mural, and we have to balance that up against the harm to the heritage asset. Thank you, Chair.
Any more speakers? Councillor Hobble.
More of a clarification. Would the pub be able to do a planning application for a mural? Is that how would they proceed if they wanted to retain it in the future or do a new one?
We can't prevent any developer, public house occupier putting in a planning application, but yes, it would require planning consent. We would assess it on its merits. I think what we've got to be clear about is that officers have got concerns with it as present, which is why we're asking it to be blanked over in a neutral colour. So I think if anyone from the public house is minded to do that, we would encourage a pre-application discussion with that. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, you want to come?
Final clarification. What constitutes a merit for a mural, or typically would constitute a merit for a mural?
I'm not going to try and assess a planning application in front of you, if I may. But obviously, what will weigh heavily in the balance is the fact that it's in a conservation area and it's a designated heritage asset, being a locally listed building. Thank you, Chair.
Any more speakers? No. In that case, members, I'm going to go to the vote. Before you is a recommendation for approval. All those in favour of approval, can you please show?
Unanimous, Chair.
That's unanimous, so that application is approved. Thank you. Next, we go to the next application on the list. Do members of the public want to remain for the rest of the meeting? So I presume many of you came for that first item. I'll leave it a few minutes while we empty the room. Thank you. And thank you, members, for not shouting out and listening to the process. That was appreciated. Thank you. Okay, we resume proceedings. So we're now going to the next application, which is 25/00307/VAR, and it's the Wombourne Enterprise Park, Bridge North Road, Wombourne. And this is Tom. Tom, will you outline the application, please?
Thank you, Chair. Planning permission is sought to vary the conditions attached to the original permission for the erection of Lidl food store, a retail unit and an industrial commercial building. The proposal is to subdivide the approved additional retail unit into 2 units, one for bulky goods retail, 804 square metres, and one for either food and drink retail, such as a cafe or restaurant or a gym. And the area would be 148 square metres. We have a look at the first slide. That shows the application site on the west side of Wombourne. Access and egress to the site is from Bridgenorth Road, which also serves as access to other commercial industrial units outside the site boundary to the northwest. The next slide shows the proposed site plan, slightly zoomed in there on the units where the proposal is. The site itself comprises a supermarket, Lidl, on the south there at the bottom of the screen. That's obviously already in use. A retail unit, which is currently unoccupied in the centre, and industrial and commercial units at the rear of the site. The proposed site plan, which is what we're looking at now, is the subdivision, shows the subdivision of the retail unit into retail units 1 and retail units 2. And in the centre there, you can see them subdivided. So, yeah, retail unit 2 is the larger one, and retail unit 1 just the lower end. You can see there. The next slide shows the proposed elevations. So the building is already there. The proposed elevations show that there are minor changes to the facade of the building, including new entrance doors, glazed panels, and additional access and exit doors to the rear. And this just reflects the subdivision of 1 unit into 2 units. In terms of the planning assessment, the site is within a designated development boundary where there's a presumption in favour of sustainable development. The proposal has been assessed in relation to its impact on Wombourne Village Centre through the submission of a sequential assessment. The strategic policy team have reviewed this assessment and consider that there is a lack of sequentially preferable sites for either of the proposed units, and therefore the sequential test is passed. The site location has previously been considered to be acceptable for retail purposes, and as such it's a suitable site for the proposal by virtue of its accessibility to Wombourne Village Centre. The proposed external changes comprise the introduction of glazed panels, a new entrance and the rear doors as well. There will be no changes to the height, width or length of the unit, and the overarching design of the building would remain as previously approved. The proposed changes are considered to be minor and would not materially alter the external appearance of the building. Actually, if we go to the next slide, it shows, yeah, there you go. You can see it as it is now. The Highways Authority are satisfied with the submitted information. The subdivision of the retail unit would not result in the need for additional parking spaces or lead to a material increase in traffic over that considered within the original transport assessment for the retail use across the unit as a whole. There are no concerns in relation to residential amenity due to the distance to nearest dwellings and the minor nature of the proposed changes. In conclusion, the proposed development is considered acceptable in principle. A sequential test has been satisfied with regard to its impact on Wombourne Village Centre. The proposal is not considered to cause harm to either visual or residential amenity, and there will be no adverse impacts on the street scene. The development also raises no concerns in relation to parking or highway safety, and overall is considered compliant with national and local planning policy and associated guidance. The application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to conditions. And I don't know if there's one more photo. No, there's just the one. But you can see it there. On the left is the Lidl store, essentially, in terms of the wider site. And you're looking, that's the view from Bridgenorth Road there, looking across the site. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. We don't have speakers speaking against or for. I'm not sure, Councillor Evans, I know you're the member for Wombourne. Are you the local member on this application? No? It's customer practice to go to the local member. Are you the local member? No, that's fine. Thank you. Sorry to open for speakers. Any speakers, please? No? Ah.
Thank you, Chair. Having read the paperwork and having looked at the plans on there, that it's not going to expand outside of the site, I can't see any problem with it at all. Thank you.
Any more speakers? Councillor Kelly.
Chair, just a quick query. If Tom could, or one of the officers could go back to the original picture showing the frontage with the car parking. That one. Majority of the car park will be used by Lidl. Is there a section solely for disabled people for the other shops and that to use? Because I'm all for it, but those other units will need, especially a CAF, might need disabled people to use as well as parking for their businesses.
Tom?
Thank you. Yes, there's through the original permission, there's provision for disabled parking, but there isn't segregated parking for that unit. But the Highways Authority responded, not raising any concerns with that. You can see there with the cursor moving up and down, you can see where the accessible disabled parking is on the site. Thank you.
Okay, any more speakers? In that case, we go to the vote. The recommendation is approval. All those in favour of approval, please show. Unanimous. Thank you. Therefore, that application is approved. Thank you. Right, we go to the next application, which is 25/00431/FULM, and it's this is a best at Ebbstreet Road, Treasel. We don't have any speakers speaking for or against, and there's no applicant either. So it's straight to, does anybody wish to speak? I'm not, what am I saying? Yeah, I'm having one of those sort of nights tonight. I think leaving Ellen out. My apologies. Ellen, second time I've done that tonight here.
I'm going to hand this one to Jess, if that's okay, Chair.
Thought I got out of that then. Planning permission is sought for a battery energy storage facility, also referred to a BESS application, substation compound with associated infrastructure, landscaping and access off Ebbstreet Road. The application site comprises a 2.8 hectare parcel of agricultural land just north of the village of Treasel. The site forms Grade 3A agricultural land and comprises an open field with hedgerow, trees forming the boundaries of the application site. Agricultural land surrounds the site on all sides. However, it is noted that to the northwest of the development there is another consented BESS which has not yet commenced development to the rear of the Hollybush Public House. Helen, if you could flick to that. So this is the site plan and the elevations, but we have helpfully done a slide which shows, oh sorry, black one there, there's another one. Which shows the best that's up for discussion tonight and the one that's already been consented at this committee previously. The best unit would comprise 60 batteries arranged in 15 rows of 4 pairs of units with a 2.5 metre high palisade fence surrounding the site. There is a buffer of tree planting proposed to the north and west of the units. You can see on that there, the green area is the proposed landscaping. Which would assist in screening the development from the adjacent BESS site and public vantage points surrounding the site. It is noted that the Staffordshire and Worcestershire Canal lies to the east of the site. A line of hedgerow exists between the site and the canal towpath along the eastern boundary of the site. And a condition has been suggested to secure this hedgerow to grow to at least 4 metres in height and be maintained as such to protect views out of the canal conservation area. As set out in the officer's report, the proposed BESS meets the definition of grey belt and would as such not be considered to be inappropriate development in the green belt as assessed against the criteria which is set out in paragraph 155 of the NPPF. Very special circumstances are therefore not required to be demonstrated for this application. The development would make a significant contribution to energy security by allowing surplus electricity from the grid to be stored and used when it is most needed. The National Planning Policy Statement for Energy, the National Policy Statement for Energy suggests that storage is needed to avoid waste, reduce the cost of electricity system and increase reliability. And this benefit is apportion substantial weight in accordance with national policy, which states that the need for such infrastructure to support the increased use of renewables. National policy advises that development should be located where impacts are or can be made acceptable. National policy does not specifically require Town and Country Planning Act applications to provide cumulative impact assessments. This is only referenced within nationally significant infrastructure projects legislation. However, where relevant, the local planning authority can assess any landscape harm through the submission of a landscape visual impact assessment. The landscape visual impact assessment submitted to supplement this application does include a cumulative impact assessment of nearby consented BESS sites and pre-app sites, and concludes that there would be no long-term unacceptable effects on the landscape character and visibility of this area, even when taking into consideration the adjacent BESS site that's already been consented. The proposal would result in the temporary loss of BMV, best and most versatile land and agricultural production, and moderate weight at best should be attached to this, given there will be no significant impact on the overall extensive amount of BMV within the South Staffordshire district. In terms of the proposal's impact on the canal conservation area, the Conservation Officer raises no objection to the proposed development due to the intervening existing tree and hedgerow cover, and has recommended the condition that I previously talked about to secure the hedgerow to the east of the site to grow to 4 metres to obscure views from the canal conservation area. Given that the archaeological potential of the site is unknown, the County Council Historic Team have recommended that an archaeological evaluation in the form of trial trenching should be undertaken to better understand and characterise the potential, and as such a pre-commencement condition has been recommended. The nearest dwelling house to the proposed development lies over 500 metres west of the application site along Treacle Holloway and 460 metres east of the site along Penstone Lane, on the opposite side of the canal. The application site lies approximately 150 metres southeast of the former Hollybush Inn public house, and there is no extant residential planning permission associated with this building, and the building is considered to be commercially unviable, which has been established through previous planning applications at this site. Although the future prospects of residential use is unclear, and whilst this proposal may impact such prospects, it can be given little weight in the determination of this application due to the factors as I've already set out. The submitted noise report suggests a number of mitigation measures to protect the nearby dwelling houses, and these have been secured via condition. South Staffordshire Fire Service have been consulted, and following the submission of the checklist and further information, raises no objection to the proposals. This is subject to the submission of a fire safety precaution statement and emergency response plan that would be secured via condition and agreed with the local planning authority in consultation with the fire service prior to the operation of the site. With these measures in place, there would be no evidence to suggest that the facility would not be operated safely, and plans in place for the unlikely event of a fire incident. The site would be accessed by an existing agricultural field, access off Ebbstree Road, and a new access track is to be created along the eastern boundary of the fields. The local highway authority raised no objection to this application, subject to conditions to secure the displays from this access in accordance with the submitted documents. So that condition has been suggested. Although there is significant planting and additional landscaping involved with this application site, there would be a net loss of habitat on site as a result of this proposal. In this instance, where BNG cannot be achieved on site, the applicant has the option to undertake offsetting on land within their own ownership, or where this cannot be accommodated, off-site credits could be purchased. This matter will be dealt with post-planning permission being granted via the statutory biodiversity gain condition that is attached to all new developments that fall outside of the prescribed exemptions of Schedule 7A of the Town and Country Planning Act, which secures the 10% BNG increase across all sites. And the Council's ecologist raises no objection to this application in relation to the submitted BNG information. To summarise, the application represents acceptable development in the Green Belt under paragraph 155 of the NPPF. the wider environmental benefits of the development in the context of the government's national strategy of decarbonising the country's energy system and uplifting the site. And the off-site credits that will be purchased for biodiversity are considered to significantly and demonstrably outweigh the visual harm which would be restricted to short term until planting is established. The proposal is considered to comply with the development plan and the MPPF, and approval is recommended subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess, for that comprehensive review. Appreciate it. Thank you. So we move on then. As I said before, there's no speaker for or against, and the applicant isn't speaking, the agent. So there are no local members tonight either. So it's over to you, members. Does anyone wish to speak on this application? Councillor Burnett.
Thank you, Chair. What is the existing height of the hedge that will grow to 4 metres, please? And second question, who will maintain the hedge at that height when it reaches that height, and who will make sure that the hedge isn't cut down in a few years' time? It sounds a very good suggestion to me. And thirdly, where did the 4 metres come from? Is that just an arbitrary number, or? Thank you.
Jess.
Through you, Chair. So the existing height of the hedge is around 2.5 metres, and in terms of the height that's been suggested to be conditioned, that would just would screen the majority of the development and work within the bounds of the heights of the development that's being proposed. In terms of who would maintain it, that would be the operators of this best site. It would be obviously secured by the planning condition, and if it was to not be maintained in that way, then obviously we could look to take enforcement action against that. Does that cover all your questions? Okay.
Thank you. Any more speakers? Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Chairman. Just on that last point, who owns the field, the brown field to the right? Does the developer own that field? Because the hedge belongs to both.
Jess.
Surely. Because they need to own both sides to leave it to grow 4 metres.
So we don't know who owns the field to the right, but the hedge is in the red line boundary, so it would be obviously secured and maintained by the applicants.
I beg to differ. The hedge doesn't belong to one landowner, it belongs to both, surely. The landowner of the brownfield might want it left at 2.5 metres. Surely they need to buy the hedge to be able to leave it to grow 4 metres. Seems logical to me.
If I may, Chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the actual hedge, it can be owned by both fields, both different landowners, or by one landowner. The only thing we can look at from a planning perspective is it's within the red line boundary, not that one that you can see there, because that's showing the access. That's trying to be helpful in terms of trying to show you the access into the site from the main Ebbs Tree Road. But the red line boundary includes the hedgerow in its entirety, so therefore we can condition it and therefore control it. So to give members the comfort, we're comfortable we can control that. And Jess is absolutely right. If there wasn't to be compliance with that condition, which is condition 15, we could take enforcement action. Thank you, Chair.
Any more speakers? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the cumulative point, we've got the one which is by the pub, and you've got this one being proposed, and you've got one which is about 500 metres down the road at Dimmingsdale. Doesn't that really impact the countryside, because you'll be seeing commercial, and it has a knock-on effect for people's health and well-being, being able to use the amenities? Has that been taken into account?
Yes.
Yeah, so the applicants have submitted an LVIA assessment, which has been independently assessed by a landscape architect consultant. And then that has actually been reviewed and they've submitted a version 2 of that. And then that has also been independently assessed. And the outcome of that is that there won't be a harm to the visual impacts due to, you know, planting and that takes into consideration all of the local viewpoints in the surrounding area. Does that answer?
And to come back.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, because as I say, in the report as well, it states that, which there was an error made, I'm sure, that the cables were going to be overhead, but now they're being done underground, and it's going to go across a heritage site, King Summit's Walk or something like that.
It's Monarch Walk. Jess, do you want to reply?
Yeah, so the site will be linked to the existing Lower Penn substation, and it will be connected via underground cables, which will go underneath the canal. And the Canal and River Trust have obviously been consulted on this application, and they raised no objection to that. So there won't be an impact on it because it will go underneath the canal, which would actually be less intrusive on the landscape than the ones that would go over.
Yes. Is it being bored underneath then, like as they call, or is it being dug a trench?
We don't have the answer to that. It's just underground cables.
That's a question. Best sites, are they renewable or are they storage? Because renewables are solar panels, wind farms, but these store the energy not created.
Yeah, okay. Through you, Chair. Yeah, in terms of national policy and PPF, they're renewable energies because whilst they don't generate, you're correct, there's not like a solar or a wind farm that generates it. It can only store renewable energy and it feeds it back into the grid at a pace where it either needs it or it doesn't. So whilst it doesn't generate it, you're correct, it's still classed as a renewable energy provision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Quick come back on that, Chair. I dispute that because I've got the planning MPPF in front of me.
Sorry, what did you just say?
Got the MPPF policy in front of me and it don't state that at all, that it's classed as a renewable energy.
To be honest, I've seen inspectors' appeals and it isn't renewable energy, but it is associated with it. So we're splitting hairs a little bit. Okay. Any more speakers? Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Chairman. I was one of the fortunate ones who went on the site meeting yesterday. Or unfortunate. I did have a coat, but not for the whole time.
And I thank you very much, Councillor Steele. It was very well received as I turned up on site without my coat. So Councillor Steele was very chivalrous. So thank you.
Yeah, I was shivering, but anyway. When I first arrived, I have to say, I thought it was probably the best site we've had for a best site. 400 metres away and one way, 500 metres away from the nearest houses. So on that, you know, I thought, well, this would be an ideal position, especially as the other one's been consented as well. But when I look at the report, I'm not quite so sure. So while battery storage infrastructure plays an important role in delivering a low carbon energy system, our local plan is very clear that renewable energy development is only acceptable where the environmental and amenity impacts are fully assessed and outweighed by the benefits. This proposal fails that fundamental test under policy EQ6, renewable energy. EQ6 states that for all renewable energy schemes, the environmental and local amenity impact must be fully assessed Applicants will be required to provide evidence to demonstrate that the renewable energy benefits outweigh the impacts on local amenities, including environmental and landscape impacts and the amenities of local residents. And in this case, they have not. So under cumulative landscape and visual impacts, in my opinion, that's not fully assessed. Our independent landscape reviewer confirms that the approved BESS and this proposal will be read as one larger industrial complex, producing minor stroke moderate adverse cumulative landscape effects. And that's a quote from the Arthian review. Now, the officer's planning balance does not include this harm at the weight recommended by our reviewer. So this places the proposal in conflict with EQ4, landscape, bracket, requires protecting landscape character, end of bracket. EQ6, renewable energy, requires full assessment and demonstration that benefits outweigh the landscape harm. And it's in conflict with MPPF 131 to 137 and 139, design and landscape sensitivity. Because cumulative harm is not adequately assessed in the planning balance, the applicant cannot satisfy Q6. Next, noise and residential amenity, missing evidence. The noise assessment models only an HVAC, it's heating and ventilation, AC, inverters and transformers. That's in table 10 of the noise assessment, which is in the planning application. It's not in the officer's report. But the submitted battery safety management plan confirms that each battery container contains additional mechanical systems, and none of these appear in the noise model. So noise levels have been taken from a similar scheme and data sheets have not been included. The noise assessment models less equipment than the battery safety management plan confirms will be on site, and specifies that final manufacturers are not yet confirmed. Therefore, the planning noise model does not yet reflect the full suite of equipment that the battery safety management plan confirms will be present on site, and this means there is a potential under-assessment of noise, particularly low frequency fan noise and intermittent noise from safety systems. This matters because the noise assessment confirms that transformer noise exceeds the SOAEL before mitigation at night, and the overall noise at several receptors remain at lowest observed adverse effect level thresholds even after mitigation at night. So any additional unmodelled sources could push receptors into significant adverse impact territory. Given the very small headroom left after mitigation, 1 to 2 decibels, and the emission of several confirmed mechanical systems from the model. But far more importantly, there is no cumulative noise assessment for the adjacent BESS. There is no modelling showing the combined noise of both BESS sites operating simultaneously, which is contrary to NPPF 198 Section A, which requires cumulative impacts to be assessed. So basically I'm saying the noise from the 2 BESSes in full operation, which is a cumulative effect, is not assessed in this report. So I'll carry on, yes, yeah. So that's contrary to EQ9 amenity, NPPF 198A, avoids significant cumulative adverse effects, and EQ6, which requires a full environmental and amenity assessment before any benefits can outweigh the harm. This is about the planning balance. Can't just assume that the country needs it without taking into account any harm that can be caused. So what I'm saying is, for the landscape and visual impact assessment, our expert who reviewed it was happy to take the two sites as one large site. So surely for noise, the same applies. One large site, and that has to be assessed according to the NPPF. So I'm building a case here. The decisive EQ6, the decisive policy failure. EQ6 is particularly clear. The environmental and amenity impacts must be fully assessed. Here, a full noise assessment, including cumulative impact, simply doesn't exist. The applicant must demonstrate benefits outweigh impacts. That's our core strategy, page 8, paragraph 86. So because noise impacts are incomplete, under-assessed or unassessed, EQ6 cannot be satisfied. So in my humble opinion, this alone is grounds for refusal. Planning balance, our landscape consultant explicitly states the localised cumulative harm should be weighed in the planning balance. Again, that's from the Arfian review, but this has not occurred. The planning balance has therefore been reached without the evidence required under EQ6 and by the NPPF's requirement for proportionate but complete information. So, in conclusion,
You're nearly finished now.
yes, I'm coming to conclusion now, and I'll give my. Obviously, I'm going to suggest refusal. Given that failure to satisfy EQ6, renewable energy, cumulative landscape and visual harm, unassessed or under-assessed cumulative noise and amenity impacts, EQ9 NPPF 198 section 8, I propose that this application be refused. Obviously, I need a second.
Before we do that, can we allow officers? There was a lot of content there, so it might not just be there. Jess, across the table, do you want to respond to some of those comments? Who wants to go first? Kelly, thanks.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I'll pick up the policy background and let Jess pick up the sort of more detail on the noise side of things. I would just say, obviously, the core strategy policies that you referred to are from 2012. They are quite old now. And as we know, we can rely on our development plan if more up-to-date information tells us otherwise. And what we know in renewable energy projects is that there is a lot of the NPPF and also in the national policy statements on renewable energy. So I would, in terms of the sort of, that's the point on battery energy storage systems, bear with me because my computer's having a meltdown, we're there on the overarching national policy statement for energy, which is EN1, which specifically refers to the role of electricity storage. And in paragraph 3.3.25, it's very clear that energy storage has a key role to play in achieving net zero and providing flexibility to the energy system so that high volumes of low carbon power, heat and transport can be integrated. It goes on from there to explain that battery energy storage systems are part of that wider package of measures, which is then in accordance with NPPF policies from 161 onwards, that says that planning decisions need to support renewable and low carbon energy and associated infrastructure. And that is where the battery energy storage systems link between the two national policies. And again, in terms of determining planning applications, paragraph 168 of the NPPF, it's very clear that when determining planning applications, all forms of renewable and low carbon energy developments should, and except not require the demonstration of needs for the renewable, which we've been over before. But that's where, in terms of the policy, that we need to go first and foremost, rather than our core strategy policies, which do actually conflict with this. So therefore, the weight that they can carry in reference to renewable energy technology is limited, because it has to be the most recent that carries the weight. So just for in terms of the framework against which we're making decisions, I will pass over to Jess to pick up the issues that you've raised on noise and landscape.
In terms of the noise assessment, there's no requirement for them to submit a cumulative noise impact assessment on both BESS sites. And I think it should be pointed out that as we both have stated, there aren't any nearby noise receptors. They're all over a certain distance away. But environmental health have been consulted on the noise assessment that was submitted, and they're happy with the findings of that. And obviously the mitigation measures have been secured via condition, and the nighttime noise levels have been also secured via condition. And there is the condition sets out that it will go on, that another noise assessment will take place 3 months after the development has become operational, and then if further mitigation measures need to be provided, that they will be. So I think environmental health are satisfied that all the conditions that have been recommended and suggested to be added to the consent will cover any noise impacts that might result from the development. In terms of the landscape visual impact assessment, as has previously been set out, it has been submitted by the applicant and assessed independently, and they have come to the conclusion that none of the local surrounding viewpoints will be impacted by this due to the landscaping that's been proposed and the topography of the existing site.
Chair, I just want to make one point that in terms of the application, it is important to reiterate that the policies that you have referred to are out of date and do carry very, very limited value, so to speak, and weight. And also the issues that you have raised relate to noise and technical matters, and indeed in the training that we have always done in relation to a refusal of a planning application and the support that is actually needed at an inquiry, it is important that we do actually adhere to the advice that is actually given by our technical experts. Otherwise, at public inquiry, it is very difficult to support reasons for refusal on technical grounds. And as Jess has pointed out, the noise assessment report has been scrutinised, and therefore, whilst we have a proposal for refusal, I would advise against a refusal of this particular application, because in essence, your concerns relate to technical matters.
Do you want to come back before I ask for a seconder?
I certainly do. And a new noise assessment 3 months after it's built is a little bit late. Now that's common sense. I know it's not technical. That's actually common sense. There is an important receptor which has not been taken into account. It's a shame it's not on the drawing, on the plan. The Stafford and Worcester Canal is only 200 metres from the bottom of the right-hand corner. I know visual impact has been taken into account. What about the noise to that? That's an important receptor. And areas of tranquility should be protected from noise. And how can 100 megawatt installation right next door, which is the noise from that is all that's been assessed, when it's next door to another 50 watt, it's not very technical to assume that that noise will be more. You don't need to be an expert. You've got 50% more mechanical machinery working twice when it's taking in the energy, when it's dissipating the energy. That is common sense. I know we don't deal in common sense, unfortunately, but I've spent hours on this and I am really annoyed that I have to do this. I do think as officers you should put up a better fight, and that's my opinion.
Councillor Steele, but the officers have to protect the interests of the council as well, but you're entitled to that opinion. Before I ask for a seconder, is there anything there you want to come back again on? Okay, Ellen.
Yeah, just to come back on the noise point, if I may. I can understand what you're saying in terms of you've got one approval, then there's an additional facility coming online. But what we have to look at is not the principle of that in general, it's where the noise receptors are. So within this vicinity, there aren't any residential dwellings that form a sensitive noise receptor. And when it comes to noise, we have to link the two. We have to have the noise source and what the receptor is. So with the canal, for example, you will have people using the canal, of course you will, people walking up and down, there's a towpath there, but that's of a transient nature. You haven't got people living there, people there on a night time when they want to have the windows open, for example, when it's warm, like you would with a residential property. So for the purposes of assessing noise, that's what I think PODIP's getting at about the technical nature of it. You've got to have the noise source, then the receptor, and then be able to prove harm to that. So with regard to the canal, it's a different setup, so it wouldn't be treated in the same manner. So I just wanted to come back on that technical point, Chair. Thank you.
Do you want to come back or go? Now, I'm going to go for it to see if there is a seconder. Is there a seconder in the room for that proposal for refusal? Councillor Kelly. I'll come back to the two of you shortly because there's a lot in there that we need to go through on the grounds for refusal because it has to stand up if we do refuse tonight. But I'm going to go and I'll come back to this proposal. To the other members, and Councillor Burnett wants to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to go back to the noise issue again, can I just ask Jess? I'm still not entirely sure about this. So you're saying that after 3 months, when both of them are up and running, there will be a noise assessment. Is that correct?
Yeah, so this was a condition that was recommended by Environmental Health. So the condition reads, the applicant will undertake a conformatory noise assessment within 3 months of the development becoming operational and submit the findings to the local planning authority for consideration. Any additional noise mitigation to make the development acceptable with regards to noise to any nearby sensitive receptors will be implemented in accordance with these findings and retained for the lifetime of the development.
Yeah, come back.
That, Chair. Thank you. So let's just get this straight. So what if the noise level is found to be of a level that's unacceptable once the thing is up and running? What happens then? Thank you.
We just row this back slightly because it's also the way that it's worded is a conformity condition. There's absolutely no expectation this will be a problem. This is a belt and braces condition. So it's being assessed based on a worst case noise scenario for the site, which is the way we assess them all. Because Councillor Steele's correct, it's not always known which technology is going to be used in these best sites. But what I would say is they are getting quieter, not noisier. So what we've done is, which is standard practice, is the consultants will assess that on a worst case noise scenario. The condition is a catch-all in case there is a problem. It's not that, oh, we fear there may be a problem, so we'll put this condition in place to stop there being a problem. If we still thought there was going to be a noise receptor issue, we wouldn't have got to this point where we're recommending approval. So it's a bit of a belt and braces catch-all situation. So that's what Jess was getting across as conformity. We are comfortable there won't be. There are no sensitive noise receptors within close proximity of this, not like previous ones that we've approved where we've required certain elements of mitigation that will then reduce that down to acceptable levels. I know we've talked a lot in the past about open windows on a night time on warm evenings and that kind of thing. We don't have that scenario here. So yes, the condition is in place. Yes, it's enforceable, but it's a backup option. I just needed to put that out there so you didn't think that that was the only mechanism we were using to protect immunity. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, happy with that? Yeah. Councillor Harper-Wallace.
Just a small clarifying. These systems, they make noise during, it's the fans that make noise, the cooling fans. So if they build it in August, in like autumn, and then it's out and the test happens in winter, then that won't be representative of its max noise. So is there any protections on that?
There's also a condition that captures the background noise. So this condition reads, nighttime noise will not exceed 35 decibels measured at the nearest noise sensitive receptor. measure from 1 metre within the facade representative of bedroom accommodation, so that that is captured via a separate condition.
But there's no date to that. So, and who does that noise assessment as well? That's us at the council. Right, okay. So can we assure through the conditions that that's done on a hot day, for example?
Yeah, through you, Chair. So yeah, environmental health team would undertake that measure to see if there was a breach of the condition. They want to do that at the most sensitive time of the day. That generally involves noise equipment being left, to be fair, at the sensitive noise receptor location. So it's not just a snapshot in time, it's more of might be there for a week or two, depending on the weather conditions, prevailing wind direction and all of that kind of stuff. So it's very much at the mercy of environmental health, but it's not just a one snapshot, if that gives you any comfort. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, come back.
Is there any remit to then justify that readings are taken both at winter and during summer then, just so we get a full accurate read of max noise level?
If the condition was suspected to be in breach at both times of that year, then absolutely yes, it would be done at the relevant time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Before I go, yes, Councillor Steele.
Am I allowed to quote a couple of clauses from the officer's report? 2.7, neighbouring amenity and public health. 2.7.1, policy EQ9 seeks to protect the amenity of nearby residents. It requires that developments likely to generate noise are directed to appropriate locations away from noise-sensitive areas. Paragraph 180 of the NPPF states that planning decisions should contribute to and enhance the natural and local environment by brackets amongst others, preventing new development from contributing to unacceptable levels of soil, air, water or noise pollution. And 2.7.3 NPPF paragraph 198 states that planning policies and decisions should A, mitigate and reduce to a minimum potential adverse impacts resulting from noise from new development, and avoid noise giving rise to significant adverse impacts on health and quality of life. B, identify and protect tranquil areas, i.e. the canal, which have remained relatively undisturbed by noise and are prized for their recreational and amenity value for this reason. 200 metres away, that canal from there. And that's quoted from the officer's
comments on that.
Just that's the policy wording, yeah, in the officer report. That's the word of the policy. That's then been balanced in the assessment part of the application and concluded within the planning balance. So yeah, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've listened to the debate and I understand the national position that we do want, the country does need renewable energy and climate change defence, especially with last week's announcement that I think gets lost in the renewable debate and the rush to net zero. The third alternative is could lead to a lot of radioactive waste in terms of nuclear. So that's the other factor. The one concern I still have is I can see there are things going for this site. There's a neighbouring site already there, so the underground cable is already there. But otherwise, I'd be querying where the overhead cable is, because we have said before that the best sites for these are where the overhead powered cables are.
Can I just interrupt? And I think, officer, the first site is connecting to the pylons, is that correct? And this site we're looking at tonight's underground cables to the Penn substation.
Thank you for clarification. The concern I've got about noise is I'm just concerned about this. There's no obligation to take into consideration the cumulative effect, because in the real world, I know there's a big distance between the sites and the nearest residents. But in the real world, the noise, background noise all comes together, and therefore it doesn't make any sense just to look at one site in isolation, especially in this case. There are two sites close together. I can't see how you can make an assessment of noise, not considering at least both the sites. Thank you.
Helen.
Yeah, again, I understand the principle that you're trying to get across there, Councillor Evans, and that's heard. I think what we're missing here is the conditions, the safeguarding conditions that we're talking about this evening that are recommended as part of this planning application were also recommended on the previous approval. So the safeguarding conditions attached to both, if they both operate, the one doesn't overrule the other, they still both apply. And the point I really do need to make on this one, the noise sensitive receptor is a considerable distance. This isn't one of the sites like we've looked at previously where there's residential properties within 100 metres, 70 metres in some cases, and we've mitigated against it. We don't have that receptor here. I totally accept what Councillor Steele's saying about the canal and how that is within close proximity in terms of 200 metres, but that's people walking, transient, not living. The noise receptor issue is not the same implication on that as it is someone's residential property. So I think we need to be really clear here that we're not looking at a noise sensitive site. This is not a site that's applied like we have across other parts of the district where there's been neighbouring residential properties, where we've had open windows, on warm evenings. We don't have that here. So I have to be really clear that to have a noise problem, you have to have a noise receptor and a source. That doesn't exist in this site. And that finally, just to echo what Jess has already said, Environmental Health have reviewed these in full, and they are incredibly thorough with the way that this is assessed and reviewed and analysed. So to sum up with where I started, there are conditions for safeguarding purposes on noise matters for both of these applications. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any more speakers? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. I'll make it brief. My concern is regarding the canal, and I take the point what Helen is saying, but that canal is, on a camber, the ground goes down to that way, and any runoff, whether surface or pollutant, will run and find its way into that canal. And there's a fishery just up the road from it, which could get highly polluted and affected. And therefore we've lost a public amenity that could be affected.
I think that's covered in the report. There's no risk of pollution into the canal here or into any of the fisheries. That's been handled by the drainage strategy. Thank you, Chair.
Any more speakers before I go to the proposal? No. Now, with the proposal, there was a lot of content there. It needs to be tidied up so that members know what they're voting on. So can you be precise, the reasons you're proposing refusal and any policy relevant to it, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll keep it to the MPPF because that's probably the overarching one, isn't it? Failure to comply with EQ6 renewable energy. The proposal fails to comply with policy, which requires that all renewable energy developments provide a full assessment. I don't see there's a full assessment of the noise impact of the two sites working in unison. So that's one reason, EQ6. Reason 2, noise and residential amenity. NPPF paragraph 198A, which I read out before, and also the impact on the tranquil area, which I think was in NPPF 198 section B. Well, I'm not bothered with our policies because they don't count, apparently. Well, because they've been superseded.
Is that the extent to the proposal?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll have to give it to the officers to look at.
So to be clear, we're talking about, I've heard the policies, so we're talking about matters of noise and the impact of noise from this development on sensitive noise receptors and the tranquility of the canal. You mentioned EQ6, that's a core policy strategy, not a, is it, yeah, okay, fine. So yeah, so that would be.
That's where the full assessment's required, that policy.
Yeah, and that's the policy that we said, it's not been superseded, to be clear, it's just that it afforded limited weight because of the date of the policy and the fact that there's been national policy that supersedes it. But yeah, I accept your policy statement, EQ6 198A of the NPPF. But to be clear to members, that's a technical noise reason for refusal. And I've already made my point on the noise receptors and the influence that noise from this site will have. I don't know if Paddy, if you've got anything to add.
Yes, Chair. 2 points. First of all, the policies that you're referring to do carry limited weight. And I do need to reiterate that point because in relation to any reason for refusal, the reason for refusal has to be substantiated at the appeal. And when I refer to substantiation, it has to be substantiated by a technical person. And I repeat that because here we have our technical professional experts expressing no concern regarding noise. So my question really is that who will be substantiating the noise arguments at appeal? We're in a very difficult situation if this application is refused on noise grounds, because in my view, it cannot be substantiated on appeal, and we do risk losing the appeal and potentially costs in relation to this one. And I don't say it very often, but you know, as we've always said to members, you know, where there is discretion in relation to landscaping and, you know, visual impact, if we can understand and support reasons for refusal, where we actually venture onto technical grounds, then unfortunately, members, as much as we would like to support your reason for refusal, we are in difficulty.
Come back, yeah.
If I can come back, we do have, on our council, have a technical expert in electrical engineering. He covers the country with trainees, etc. He's written part of the electrical energy rules. He's a technical expert if we need one. I would say he probably knows more about it than our environmental officer. I have to be honest, technically wise.
The problem is when it goes to appeal, the inspector will look at the official consultees. That's our environment people. You can put a counter argument on that. I did note you were talking about cumulative effect. You're not putting that into any proposal. No.
Well, yeah, so I'm saying the two sides. That's cumulative.
Yeah, but you haven't put it in the proposal, have you?
Well, I don't know what the policy is referring to cumulative effect.
Right.
But it exists, doesn't it? Cumulative effect. The very word cumulative means more than one.
But we in terms of expanding the policy, EQ6, which we've already expressed, has got limited weight, but 198A and 198B, which covers the tranquility area, we could incorporate that. That's NPPF, so.
We need to move it forward. I think members now have heard all sides to the argument. We now put that to the vote, having every member heard the argument. So I have a proposal that we refuse on the grounds that were put forward. And I have a show of hands, all those in favour of refusal. Please show.
Chair.
Okay.
Substantive.
Yeah, so it's a substantive proposal now. We have a recommendation for approval. All those in favour of approval, please show.
Fine.
Right, all those against approval, 2 abstentions. Okay, that is clearly carried. That's approved. Thank you, members. thank you for forbearance. Yes, councillor Stern.
Can I have my vote recorded, please?
Yeah.
Voting against.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay, thank you. Okay, so we move on to the next on the agenda. I'll try and remember to come to Tom on this one. This is 25 00745 /COU, All End Farm, All End Lane, Pattingham, and it's over to you, Tom, to put the review of the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Planning permission is sought for the temporary siting of a static caravan on an approved hard-standing area within the paddock at Hall End Farm, Pattingham. The caravan will provide accommodation for the applicant while works are undertaken to construct a replacement dwelling, which has previously been approved. If we have a look at the first slide, you can see the existing and proposed site plan there, and the plan at the bottom of that slide shows the rectangle in the centre of where the proposed static caravan would sit. If we go to the next slide, and that's the sort of illustrative diagram of what the caravan would look like, and the floor plan. And if we go to the next slide, and that's the site currently, and that's looking, the caravan would be sited right in front there, essentially where that sort of mound of manure I think is. There's already an approval behind that mound where that horse box is, for a barn to support equestrian use and to store hay and machinery. To the left of that photo is where the actual house is that's being replaced. And that's it for the photos. In terms of the planning assessment, the proposal constitutes inappropriate development as it's in the Greenbelt, as defined in the National Planning Policy Framework and Policy GB1 of the South Staffordshire Core Strategy. However, the applicant has put forward very special circumstances to justify the development, including the temporary nature of the caravan and the clear need for accommodation during the build period. That's the replacement dwelling. These factors are considered sufficient to outweigh the harm caused by the inappropriateness. The impact on Greenbelt openness is assessed as low to moderate due to the caravan's modest scale and temporary duration. There are no concerns regarding residential amenity, highway safety, ecology or biodiversity. No objections have been received from consultees or the public. In conclusion, while the proposals represent inappropriate development in the Greenbelt, the identified very special circumstances justify a temporary 2-year permission. The recommendation is to approve the application subject to a condition to remove the caravan 2 years from the date at which permission is granted. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. On this application, we have no one speaking against or for, no applicant, and the local members aren't present. So does anyone wish to speak on this application? Councillor Kelly.
As it's in the Greenbelt, Chair, is there any conditions regarding materials that they might be using as it's in the Greenbelt?
Tom.
Thank you. The application is assessed on what's been submitted, and the 2-year temporary permission is essentially the mitigation that after that 2 years it will be removed. But there is obviously a slight impact, as you'll see in the officer's report, in terms of the impact of the caravan, and that is weighed in terms of the planning balance and the very special circumstances. So all that combined, whilst there would be a low to moderate impact on the Greenbelt, it would be for a temporary period of 2 years. So that's kind of been weighed in the planning balance. So that therefore it wasn't necessary to seek certain materials or colours as part of the application. Thank you.
Clarification, please. What I would have perceived to have seen, if it's a dwelling that's going to be built, have we had any plans or any specs to show what sort of dwelling that's going to be built?
Thank you. With these applications and previous ones, the drawing there, the illustrative drawing, is seen as sufficient. It's a static caravan. That's what it would look like. It's specifically from the brochure. It's the 38 foot by 12 foot, which is the exact dimensions that are shown on the site plan there. So if approved, it would have to sit within those boundaries shown. If you go to cursor, that's the dwelling to be replaced. And if you go to the right, keep going, that's the area there. So it'd be within that location, and it would be the specification of what's shown on that drawing and on the slide, which shows the dimensions of the static caravan.
I just add to that to say that in the officer's report, the planning history is there, so you'll see the full details of the actual replacement dwelling that's already got consent as well. So that's a separate in the planning history. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Councillor Steele.
Thanks, Chairman. It's just a bit technical. I thought a caravan had to be able to be towed behind a vehicle. It's 38 foot long and 12 foot wide. It's rather large for a caravan. And I know that I've been on a holiday site and they're £60,000 to buy one of those.
That's an observation, Councillor Steele. I think we all appreciate that. Any more speakers? Councillor Burnett.
Thank you, Chair. Just going back to Councillor Steele's point. So in planning, a caravan also refers to a static mobile home. There's no differentiation between them. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's under the Caravan Act of that, yes.
Okay. Any more speakers? No, I'll go to the vote. The recommendation before you is approval. All those in favour of approval, please show.
Yeah.
Clearly unanimous. That application is approved. Thank you, members. Right, we go back to the agenda. We're on to item 5, which is the planning performance report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just a brief update from me today. Nothing to report on a service level, but I did want to bring members' attention to a report that I'm going to pass over to Annette to present very briefly, which is related to the master plan associated with land east of Bilbrook and land north of Penkridge, and which were appended to this report, and the process for getting those agreed through the local plan adoption process. So I'm going to hand to Annette.
Thank you, Helen. So just quickly, members, just to bring you up to speed in relation to this and the reasons for bringing this report to you. You'll be aware that the local plan requires the delivery of high quality design and effective master planning for the design of good spaces and placemaking. And in that context, in the context of strategic sites, it requires site-wide master plans to be made. And that's why we're here tonight as part of this part of the report. The local plan makes provision for this, and it says to ensure strategic sites are comprehensively planned and delivered. Planning applications should be preceded by and consistent with a strategic master plan, which has been agreed in writing by the Council's Corporate Director, Placing Communities. Where applications have been submitted to the Council prior to the adoption of this plan, a strategic master plan should be agreed with the Council prior to or as part of the grant of planning permission. And that's where we find ourselves. So in relation to policy MA1, it says that it will be a requirement that the Council signs off the strategic master plans, and this will be done by the Council's Corporate Director of Place and Communities through consultation with the relevant Cabinet member and Chairman of Planning Committee. So in the context of where we are, that's clearly the relevant Cabinet member is Cabinet member for Planning and Enterprise, so Councillor Mark Evans, and the Chairman of Planning Committee, who obviously we know is Councillor Bob Cope. So the Council has been working for some time in relation to these master plans for for Billbrook and Penkridge, and to secure the site-wide master plans as we see them and as are presented in the papers this evening. Both of these, as required, set out the key issues, including visions and objectives for both sites. It set out baseline evidence upon which those proposals and the plan and master plans have been set out, land use framework, movement frameworks, green infrastructure and design and phasing. And also they detail in relation to the consultation and how that will be undertaken as part of these wider schemes. I can now confirm that following extensive work and engagement between the council and the developers, I'm satisfied that these can be signed up, that these master plans can be signed off in line with the requirements of the policy to effectively create effective, well master planned sites. And I have consulted with the Cabinet member and the chairman of Planning Committee, and they have both informed and confirmed to me in writing that they agree with that assessment. So this is just to update you as the Planning Committee of that position. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions, members? Councillor Kelly.
Do the members get a chance to have a look at the new master plans and take a view?
In this case, neither of them are new. They've always formed part of the submissions that we've got live. The nuance here is obviously that the planning application, so the development management process, has come slightly ahead of the plan process. So the master plans that have been agreed have formed part of the submissions, so have been public document for a long time.
Just to add further to that, the local plans examination at the moment, policy MA1 does have some strategic concept plans in those. It is merely related to that to show that the process has been taking place, that the development of those concept plans into the master plans has kept with those broad parameters, and it is very broad parameters that we're talking about. The detail is obviously for the development management process to consider. It is to deliver the policy that we have at examination at the current time.
Thank you, Kelly. Any more questions? Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. Annette, can you just clarify then, land north of Penkridge, is that what we're talking about already in the Blorhens that are getting through? Yeah. Nothing additional to that? Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? No? Everybody's happy with that? Okay, members, there's nothing else. Sorry. Back to Ellen.
I am nearly done, I promise, Chair. Just to note, there was quite a lot of appeal decisions. I don't intend to go through them. If members have got queries, that's absolutely fine. But just really the main point I would like to make is about the ones that have been allowed and how much weight is given to the lack of a 5-year housing supply, and that we'll fight the good fight where we need to, but we're not always winning them at pins. And you'll see how that's played out in the planning balance. But that was it for me, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I just wanted to comment as well on how disappointed I was to see a couple of those appeals that were allowed. I was disappointed that the condition relating to lighting overnight was overturned, because artificial lighting at night is a pollutant. But the one I was really disappointed with was this one at Lower Warstone Farm, where a barn was being split into 4 separate properties, and the inspector, the planning officer, had concluded that it wasn't a sustainable location, and the planning officer has put the fact that we've had no local plan in place a significant weight. I didn't think that was very proportionate, considering housing developments go from single figures all the way up to thousands on a regular basis. To say that 4 new houses is significant when they've got a scale of limited, moderate significance just seems a little bit like a howler. I mean, at the day job, I'm used to the tribunal system where you do have a lower and upper tribunal where that's in place. And that's been in place for 20 years. And the idea of the upper tier, which replaced the High Court, was if one site felt an error had been made at a lower level, the lower tier, they could go to the upper tier and have it looked at. This is very disappointing, that one.
Thank you for your views, Councillor Evans. I'm sure everyone's noted them. Any more speakers? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. I'm glad we won the appeal on the battery farm at what's name, but I'm just a bit concerned at what the inspector says regarding that there might be some costs due to some paperwork or something, and how it affected the residents. Then it says the ancient woodland. Baffles me.
Yeah, through you, Chair. An interesting decision. Obviously, it was a very technical matter and we won, for want of a better phrase, the appeal and the way that panned out. The costs claim hasn't been submitted yet, so we don't know what that would look like. But I'm not envisaging it to be of great cost. But happy to discuss that with you in more detail. Thank you, Chair.
Any more speakers? No. For the last time, I'll just check whether anybody wants to speak on the top table. No. Okay. Apologies tonight. Okay. Thank you very much, members. And I'm closing the meeting. Thank you. Good night, everybody.